What do you see as the relationship between the personal individual behavior, like now we have asparagus stems, and I'm going to do something with them, and the larger problem of food waste and climate change? It's like a very big mess. It's like, seems everybody has to do something about it, right? And maybe some people are trying, even sometimes maybe challenging, because let's face it, I think I'm guilty as anybody. Yeah, sometimes I have food in my fridge because maybe I bought too much. The tomato juice goes rotten. Well, I put it in my compost bin, so I know I didn't eat it, but I know it's going to help make my soil in my mini garden I have outside my house or somebody else's garden a good compost that will help them produce next season great vegetables. So what I'm only trying to say is that, oh my God, people have to be overwhelmed. It's so complicated. The willingness to try to do the right thing versus feeling successful doing the right thing.
I think that we are all overwhelmed, and I think that is a really wonderful, empathetic way of talking about this huge problem because there are personal choices that you make at home, and sometimes and I think that we often talk in terms of guilt, which is, like, guilt and shame are not actually very good motivating factors. So feeling guilty or doesn't produce change, which is one reason that on a personal level I think it's good to think of, like, not what you're doing wrong, but just what you can do, right? Like, if you have one, if once you're like, I'm going to try to cook these asparagus bottoms, then that doesn't save the world, and you're not going to save the world by keeping your asparagus bottoms, and you're not destroying the world by throwing them out. Compost is obviously great, but, like, if you're not destroying the world by putting them in a landfill, because the food production that we are currently engaged in on a global level is obviously far more responsible for climate change than at-home food waste, and that's important to remember. And I think that sometimes we actually overly emphasize individual choice, because it's a lot easier to say, we all Americans throw out 30 to 40% of our food every year, and it's so great that big corporations like Kroger are diverting wasted food toward food banks and stuff like that, and it doesn't take into account that much more food waste is happening just because of the way we distribute food and what we subsidize. So I feel like it's important to keep the actual structural picture and what's wrong with it front and center, and to say clearly that we should change the food system regardless of what we're doing on a personal level. But it's also true that there's a kind of, like, I feel like we're constantly in thrall to, like, we're constantly at the whim of this food system, which is really wasteful, if we don't have the skills to use all of what we have. So on one level, it's like we have to train ourselves up in what we can do with all of this stuff, what we can do with breadcrumbs, like fry them in pork fat, what we can do with asparagus bottoms, braise them and puree them into soup. Because the more we have that, the more I feel like sort of self-sufficiency and sovereignty we have, and the more we can say, I'm not comfortable with this food system, but I don't need it, because I actually can always make something with what I have.